Just last December, our great friend and mysterious account run by a man, woman, kid, or DJI's marketing account, I have no idea, DJI FPV, published this tweet. Boom! Yes, the DJI FPV drone. We're super excited. We don't really know if that's true or not. Fact is that this account most of the time says the truth. And we've been seeing this in the past months and years. We gotta say that on this channel here on We Talk UAV, we've been asking for a DJI FPV drone for many times. I mean, you can look back at those videos. Chivo, just make your work and look it up. Look it up in those videos, find the moment. Oh, this is terrible. Never know. And what's left? Of course, the FPV drone. But they are selling every single part for FPV drones, but not an actual FPV drone. And fact is, as I'm saying, that if this is ever happening, there is something gonna be really interesting because of, first of all, what is DJI betting on this FPV world? Is it really something completely revolutionary for everyone? What does it mean for the drone business overall? Until now, we had the popular consumer drones being most of the time easy drones for filmmakers or semi-professional or even beginners, but more in the filmmaking branch. And also, what does it mean, of course, for the final consumer? The prices, will they drop other products on DJI? I don't know. This is something that I want to talk about, and that would be huge if that ever would happen by DJI, that they would release this FPV drone. Fact is, we don't have it, we don't know what's happening, and just a couple of hours ago, before I'm recording this video, I just saw on Twitter that same OCTA account published this tweet. So, about something that is not official, something that did not have a date yet, something that is completely smoke in the air, suddenly they postpone it to after Chinese New Year, which means we gotta wait for something that does not exist. Yeah, marketing 21st century. But before we get into the depth of this video, what does this mean? What is an FPV drone and how would DJI probably release this drone? Well, if you've been seeing lately many professional YouTubers and all those pros, not like us, we're just simple beginner freaks. Well, not actually beginner freaks, but all those famous accounts have been doing some kind of different drone shots and more FPV style and faster drone shots with a different frame rate and many more things that we are not used to when doing films regularly. And of course, among all those people, there are two that you may have seen by now, which are Sam Kohler and that famous Johnny FPV2, of course. Now, the fact is that you may have dreamed about those shots and really doing them with your drone and that, but at some point when you get into the FPV world, it kind of is a little bit, if you're not that kind of person that likes building and buying parts and, all that stuff, it just kind of gives you laziness. I don't know, Google is saying it gives you laziness, does it? Well, you know what I'm saying. I'm just too lazy to do all those things. I'm just not interested in those things, I just like more having something ready to fly, film, and get some really nice shots. But now the moment seems like DJI is finally doing something ready for everyone, opening a whole new world with this FPV drone, if that is happening. And on December 13th, that same Twitter account, yes, published this photo. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I'm really excited. I gotta say, I'm really excited about this. And Chivo also, Chivo is really, I remember Chivo, he thought he was an FPV pro until we had a couple of those drones on this channel and he just crashed them the same way I did. So he's also like this at home. And a couple of days later, our also friend Drone DJ published this video, and even though it's kind of pixelated with lots, distorted images and all that, it kind of shows us that this may also be really real. So the fact is that I don't really know what is happening, if DJI is really planning on releasing this, when. Now we can see after Chinese New Year or whatever, but I have not received one. DJI, please send me one. Jesus, you always do. Why not now? And the fact is that we don't have any official events. As I said, there's nothing on their website. There's nothing that looks like this is happening. But we're talking about a drone here that is FPV, and you just set up some goggles and start flying. I mean, you got my whole attention on this DJI, honestly. And we gotta say, of course, it's not the first time that DJI plays a little bit with this FPV stuff. I mean, a couple of years ago, or even 3 or 4 years ago, DJI released, remember those white goggles? Hold on a sec, just give me a sec. sometimes these things happen. I mean, I want to die. Well guys, this must be the most expensive video I've done in my life, and well, I actually was gonna show you the goggles. At what moment did I decide to show it to you? Well, man, it's okay. I was talking about the white ones. The white ones, they were like the first one that released. They were exactly kind of similar and just completely in white. The difference, it was great because at that moment you could do that immersive flying. I really remember with the Mavic flying out there, and it was quite the first time, if you had not been using FPV before, that you really had a great signal and you could see what the drone was seeing and just hear, you know, you were like flying. And then a little bit later they released these goggles, which are the RE version, and they were enhanced. They had OcuSync. There was like this digital system that improved even the range, and it was just bigger, better, and all that. But of course, you know how heavy this is? I mean, look at my face, and this is the, I mean, Jesus, like after 2 minutes, you just start getting some pain here, and it's just terrible. But I gotta say, last year DJI released, and I really am not an expert on this, but they released this FPV system, which was including pretty much everything that you needed with a really low latency and a great signal and all that. So some people that were actually trying this were super happy, and you know, they were quite successful with this DJI FPV system. So it was at that moment where they were actually telling us, so guys, this is now serious. We're just betting some of our money in this direction of FPV, and you know, you could, until now, you could pretty much buy all the parts of a drone and FPV system on their website, on the official DJI website. So why were they actually not releasing the drone? And let's just recap a little bit what's out there right now. And there's a lot of content on YouTube and so many people telling you what you gotta do, how to set up the drones and all that. And that's fine, but in the end, you're gonna spend some money, of course. You're gonna need a lot of parts, like a receiver, a good controller. You'll need the great drone, buy all the parts. You need a camera. You need a couple of things that eventually will end up making you purchase and spending quite some money. Of course, there's always the option, like we did on this channel, that there were some made, like ready, finished FPV drones, but I think that until now people were not really interested in all that. And probably you were spending about $400-500 on a decent, really decent setup. And at this point, I mean, DJI is selling for $400-500 a Mini 2. You really got some really awesome drone with great signals, with great potential, great cameras and all that. So why not take this and turn it into something really powerful inside this FPV world? Thank God it was just like IKEA lamp for 10 or 15 bucks. If it was like some design really expensive, then it, I mean, but yeah. Oh my God, this also, oh, it completely broke. So remember, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you could take a Phantom 2 or whatever you were flying at the time, and there were not too many restrictions, or at least not as popular as they are now, and not as strict, of course, as they are now. And back at the time, I mean, throughout this couple of last years, it has changed quite a lot. So it is now quite difficult to fly in many zones. But can you imagine how it's gonna be if DJI starts selling massively FPV drones and people just go crazy with these tiny things that can take speeds of up to, I don't know, 150 km/h. I mean, this is gonna be huge, and get ready for that too, guys. By the way, DJI, please send me one. Jesus. So what are we as consumers expecting out of this kind of drone? Well, actually, we gotta say, after all the last releases that DJI has made, like the Mini 2, the Air 2, and before that the Mavic 2 Pro, I am betting that if DJI, knowing the brand, is launching something like an FPV drone, it's gonna be something great. I mean, it's not gonna be some toy drone to see if it works or not. It's gonna be a decent, powerful, and probably the best FPV drone out there. Now, there are gonna be some questions like, for example, is it gonna be too big? I mean, if they still want to keep that awesome filmmaking, if you're putting it into a smaller drone, it's gonna be difficult to have great signal, to have great footage, to have great... So what are they gonna do? Are they gonna mix everything up a little bit? You know, all those questions that I make myself are really interesting, and I hope that in the future we can have some answers to those questions. I gotta say, I'm really excited about this as a consumer, as a user, because after 5-6 years flying those pretty much automatic drones that can give you every year better footage, it arrived to at some point that I needed something new. I believe if this ever happens, this DJI FPV drone, it's going to be something that got us filmmakers and consumers really wanting to test out something new. And as I'm saying, there are a bunch of YouTubers that have already kind of started with this kind of drone footage, and it's going to be really interesting how things are going to be changing on YouTube too, on the social networks, because we're going to see a lot of content out there of this FPV shots and FPV world, you know. Of course, it all also have a peak, and then it will just release a little bit, you know. But as I'm saying, as a filmmaker, I'm really excited to try and test out new things on drones. Is it gonna be sold like massively, like as popular as a Mavic? Well, I have my doubts here because first of all, the niche. I mean, FPV drones are really a niche. The good thing what DJI managed to do is that someone that has no idea about filmmaking, about flying, that doesn't really care about any of those things, if they were about to travel to a nice beach or island, whatever, they were buying a drone. And it got so popular out there on the social networks, they were right at the moment where they had to be. And FPV drones is something a little bit more specific. As I'm saying, it's a market niche, much smaller, and of course it will depend about the price, but I'm not quite sure if they will expand that niche. I mean, drones were 10 years ago something really niche too, like niche-y too, but now it's got really popular. But still, it's not like, I don't know, DSLR cameras or something that every person out there has, but it still has expanded a lot, that niche. But FPV drones, I'm quite excited to see what happens. I believe that if this happens, it will have a boom. It will be really interesting in the beginning, but then we'll see what happens after that. And what I'm actually thinking is this the right moment to do so, even if it's after, you know, in a month or in 2 months? And I'm not quite sure. It may be the right moment for DJI to be releasing something like this, because all their drone lines, the Mavic lines, you know, with the Mini, the Pro version, even the Phantom being a little bit left out in the past years, they have reached this maturity where they can actually really easily bet on something and know that this is gonna be a winning horse. Let me say it this way. They have established as a leader brand. They're not risking or not too much, but not as much as they would have been risking like a couple of years ago, that's for sure. And the problem about brands that are innovating constantly is at some point they get like, you know, everybody has seen pretty much everything out of them. And FPV drones, it's something that is still to be really worked on. So I believe it's kind of the right moment for DJI. And finally, to whom would be this drone, you know, made for? And I believe it's pretty much for everyone like ourselves, that you guys that are watching this channel and all those similar channels, people that like filmmaking, people that have had enough experience when filmmaking and want to test out something new. I mean, we've been testing here FPV drones in the past and we didn't really like them, I have to say. I mean, I can say it open, I just don't like too much the FPV world because it's too complicated for me and I don't have the time or patience anymore to do something. Like, there's something you gotta learn a lot and invest many hours, and if you're not passionate about it, I don't see the moment being 30 plus years, you know. If I was 15, maybe it was different. But I don't know if a 15-year-old in the future can purchase normally this FPV drone with the combos of the goggles and all that, because it's gonna be expensive, right? So I'm not quite sure. So to finish up this video that cost me a lot of money. Yeah, summing up, as I've mentioned here, I believe it's not something that has surprised us a lot, because as I told you, we've been asking for this quite many times on this channel, but we had not any idea of how it would look like, and that's something that has surprised me quite a lot. I have to say, I did imagine this drone completely different. I don't know why this kind of seems like a Mini Inspire to me, and I don't know, in my head it was kind of different, so that surprised me, really. That design is true, and being maybe capable of flying up to 150 km/h, I mean, it's gonna be huge. I mean, I don't know how they're gonna do it, and I'm actually thinking now about the DJI Care refresh and all that, because this is gonna be, I don't know, we'll talk about this in another video, but it is gonna be really huge. So guys, overall, I don't know, I hope that you like this kind of videos from time to time, and as you can see, we're in the new studio. I will present it, well, I actually have to rebuild stuff now, but I will talk a little bit about the studio in future videos. I don't think this was the right video to do so, and I hope that you're happy. Are you surprised actually? Let me know in the comments and, you know, leave the thumb and sub if you're not yet. Always remember to keep calm and talk UAV.